Hi, it's Colin from Colin's Beauty Pages here. It's not always a good idea to ignore people you disagree with. And the other day I was on Facebook, and as Facebook does, it offered up the suggestion that I should join a group called methoisothiazolinone victims. Now, I wasn't sure if it was a good idea to sign up because I've done YouTube videos saying that I don't think methylisothiazolinone should be banned, and so there's a good chance that people in that kind of group would have heard of me and wouldn't like me very much. And indeed, I joined up, and pretty soon people were being, fairly unfriendly. But what I decided to do was to not say anything provocative, but not back down either. Just sit there and lurk, basically. And I'm glad I did, because I came across something that I thought was quite an interesting bit of information. If you don't suffer from an allergy, as I don't, it's not perhaps that easy to understand exactly what it means on a day-to-day basis. You're sort of aware of the simple facts here. If you apply the allergen to your skin, an immune reaction starts and your skin goes red and possibly dry and itchy and all the other unpleasantness associated with it. And indeed, in very rare cases, it can be quite clinically dangerous. But that's when you're not directly involved as a sufferer, is a bit abstract, and you don't necessarily get all the drawbacks this gives you in day-to-day life. And one thing that had not occurred to me until I read some of the discussions on this group is that one of the problems with being allergic specifically to methylisothiazolinone is that it's used a lot in hard surface cleaners. And for instance, if you go to a restaurant to sit down, the table might very well have been cleaned just before you sit there by a cleaner containing methylisothiazolinone. Now, this is a volatile molecule, so as the cleaner dries, fumes will rise up, and if your sensitivity is of a particular type, it'll sort of start affecting your eyes, and so a pretty unpleasant consequence of an allergy, and of course one you've got very little control over. You can choose not to buy a shampoo that contains methylisothiazolinone, but you can't very easily pick restaurants that use methylisothiazolinone free cleansers. And of course, looking at this from my point of view as a formulator, I've never actually worked on hard surface cleansers, but it's the sort of thing I might have done at some stage, and I've certainly met people who have. I would have thought, before I'd come across this particular observation, that the choice of preservative in a hard surface cleaner was less of a problem than it is in a cosmetic, because it doesn't generally come into contact with human skins for more than a transitory moment. So if I'd been given the job up until a few days ago of formulating a hard surface cleaner, I'd put the end of the methylisothiazolinone in, no question about it. There are, of course, different factors that you take into account when you're formulating different products, and one of the things that formulators could do to reduce exposure to preservatives is use a cocktail of preservatives. It's something that's not at all surprising, and which there is hard data to support, that combinations of preservatives work better than individual preservatives. I think that's something that's sort of not difficult to believe, is it? You sort of know that if you attack things from more than one angle, you don't need quite as much of an attack to achieve your objective. And so if you could use 5 or 6 preservatives, you could use a much total lower level of preservatives than using 1 or 2 individually. And this would be of great benefit to people who have allergic reactions. Allergies, biological processes, we understand roughly how they work, and it is quite obvious that the level of application has a big impact on whether you can trigger a reaction or not. There will be a level of methylisothiazolinone that even the most sensitive of sufferers can tolerate. It might be difficult to work it out, but we know that the lower you put the material in, the less of a problem there'll be. This was the problem when methyl isothiazolinone first came out in the 70s. Formulators were delighted with it to begin with, and they whacked it in at quite high levels, and it was only when the very small number of people who get reactions to it started appearing that it was realised that you couldn't just put any amount in, you had to scale it back to the lowest possible level. And since then it's been a very effective preservative. The recent uptick in methyl isothiazolinone allergens has been because people have tried to use methyl isothiazolinone on its own instead of the traditional use, which is in combination with methyl chloroisothiazolinone. That's another good illustration that preservatives work better in combination. The amount of methyl isothiazolinone and methyl chloroisothiazolinone you need to use in combination is much lower than you need to use of one of the single agents on their own. So going over to the single one, it automatically puts more of the allergen into the environment. Probably wasn't a very good idea, actually. But getting back to the preservation of hard surface cleaners, if you could take the view that hard surface cleaners are going to come into contact with just about anyone, the logical thing to do would be to use a cocktail of preservatives at as low a level as you can get away with, and that way not only would there be less problem for people with methyl isothiazolinone allergies, but also for the people who are allergic to all the other preservatives as well. The reason you can't use this approach in cosmetics is quite a simple one. The preservatives have all got a bad image. Every single one of them has been criticised at some stage or another. You never know when the next news story is going to come out over the next scare story over a preservative. So there's an obvious pressure to give your product as few targets for problems as possible. So you use the minimum number of preservatives you can get away with. And that means not using the minimum level. That unfortunately is the way the world works. It would be great if we could get to the stage where people didn't automatically throw their hands up with horror at the name of every preservative, and that we could go about things in a more rational way, but I'm afraid humans don't just work like that. However, with hard surface cleaners there isn't really that problem, because people don't generally buy cleaners with the same amount of attention they pay to their personal care products, and so I think you could get away with a cleaner with 6 or 7 preservatives listed on the ingredient list, because nobody will take that much notice of it, and you get fewer reactions to it in real life. So that was an interesting observation, and I will carry on following this group on Facebook. I'll probably keep a low profile though. I don't want to upset them too much, but if they carry on sharing their views on there, I will find very helpful. And the next time I run into somebody who works in hard surface cleaners, I can pass on this pearl of wisdom to them in the hope that maybe it will help somebody somewhere. I better get back to my job now. Thanks for listening.